Appreciate it.
Well, after last week's decision in the Apple-Samsung case, now Apple wants some of Samsung's products off the market.
This is interesting and kind of a turn of events. Our tech expert Dan Thompson is here to break it all down for us. This whole lawsuit, just for our viewers who might not know, explain what happened.
So Apple took up a lawsuit against Samsung claiming that they had stole intellectual property. Basically, they had copied their designs. They made a really good case showing here's what all the Samsung products looked before the iPhone came out, and then after the iPhone, oh look, they all look just like the iPhone. And so they made apparently a really solid case. And so this is the decision the jury handed down. It was just shy of $1.1 billion fine they had to pay.
Whoa.
And then Apple immediately asked for 8 different devices to be pulled from shelves and banned from the U.S. So they weren't messing around when they did this.
So is every smartphone copying what Apple has done, essentially?
Well, that's the great question now, because since Apple was successful, which by the way was a huge shocker in the technology community, since they were successful here, everybody's speculating that now everybody is open to lawsuits. They already have a lawsuit against HTC, which is another popular phone maker, and I'm sure Motorola has to be sweating bullets at this point as well. Google also, from this ruling, is fair game for some lawsuits themselves. So it should be interesting to see how this shakes out. However, I will say this is far from over. There will be appeals all over the place on this one.
It could be tied up in court for a long time. So the question I have is, if I have one of these products, how does that affect me?
That's a great question. Just the other day, right when the ruling came out and Apple asked for these phones to be pulled off the shelves, the internet just went crazy. There's a bunch of sites where you can buy used gear, and people were trying to dump Samsung gear like crazy because they were just afraid that either the value of their devices was going to drop or they wouldn't be supported anymore. The reality is that you don't have anything to be worried about if you have the device already. Support's not going to go away for it. Samsung has an obligation to its customers that you've already purchased this device. They just won't be able to sell these in the future. As a matter of fact, there was such a run on trying to get rid of these devices that the value just dropped through the floor. So if you have one, you probably want to hang on to it for a little while and let this storm kind of weather itself, and then maybe get rid of it later. But I mean, the reality is the 8 phones that Apple went after are kind of some older model phones anyway, and the life cycle on these things, after about 2 years, the phones aren't really worth much anyway. So I mean, you're going to get your money's worth out of it. They're still good devices. It just so happens that the jury decided that they had copied Apple to get them on the market.
I find it so strange because you see products out there, I mean,
like a laptop, for example. All laptops to me look kind of alike.
Yeah, I mean, they set a trend, but did the company actually copy their software? I mean,
right, and that's really what the big shocker was, is that, yes, they all are kind of rectangled with rounded edges, but, I mean, does that really constitute a copy? I don't know. It's a tough call. I mean, and when you look at the history of the technology industry, I mean, Microsoft, Apple, all those companies have made their money off maybe infringing a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just kind of how technology works.
But you think of the older, before smartphones, the basic cell phones, I just remember
like
them all kind of looking the same.
I mean, bar phones.
Yeah, the flip phones came out.
Yeah,
exactly. Then the bar phones came out. Everybody was making that, and nobody really seemed to care. The funniest comment that I've seen online about this whole thing towards Apple was, if you can't beat your competition, you should just sue them.
Was Samsung making strides ahead of Apple? Is that?
Well, yes, and they were really knocking the market down. And this is, for Samsung, I mean, they are a huge global player. They outsell Apple in a global market by a large margin. This just shy of $1.1 billion fine that they got really hit with represents about 1.25% of their annual revenue. So I mean, it's hurt, but I mean, and to us it's a huge number, but to them it's like it's more than a bump in the road. But I mean, it's certainly, they're not going out of business because of this one decision.
This is interesting. I could talk about this all morning.
I guess your point though is to be continued. ...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was all kinds of just stinky stuff coming out of the jury. I mean, there was a foreman who has a lot of controversy around him. So I'm sure Samsung is going to be following up with appeal suits just anytime now.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
So nice to have you here. We'll be right back with more Mornings with Fox 43.